Hi there, Dave Paulides, author of Missing 411, executive producer of 3 documentaries, all titled Missing 411, and I'm here, Season 5, Episode 1, Skinwalker Ranch series on this History Channel. I reviewed them the last couple years. We're going to start again right now. And I want to start off with giving you a very brief history lesson on the ranch in Utah, northern part of the state. Originally owned by some ranchers. They had some very unusual occurrences happen there. The ranch was purchased by Robert Bigelow, who put a team of scientists on the ranch for a number of years and some government resources there. He sold the ranch, didn't want anything to do with it anymore, to Brandon Fugal, a real estate developer out of Utah. Now, Brandon has owned the ranch for a number of years now, and he, with the assistance of the History Channel, put a series of scientists onto the property, and they're continuing, well, they had to start anew, and they're doing new research at the ranch, trying to figure out what's causing the anomalous occurrences there. Now, one of the things I think many people have lost sight of is, why did Mr. Bigelow sell the ranch? He didn't want anything more to do with what was happening there, period. And that, pretty scary proposition. So we have Brandon, the owner of the ranch. Travis Taylor, a physicist, is kind of the chief scientist on the ranch. And I think they're lucky to have him. I had a lot of comments last year that people didn't believe that what was happening at the ranch was real. I'm telling you, it's real. It's real. I don't care what you think, it's real. And if you don't believe it's real, leave. Don't even leave any comments, just go your way, goodbye. Because there's no reason for you to be here if you don't believe what they're telling you and what they're showing you. Now, I realize, because I've seen a lot of fake videos in my life, this is not being faked, folks, contrary to what you may think. This stuff is happening. Now, in last year's segment, I want to catch you up to where we are today. There's an area of the property that's called the Triangle, a small piece of land kind of in the middle of the ranch. And above that triangle, there's been a lot of odd occurrences. Now, what they were able to do with some special photography is film some kind of structure that can't be seen, but it is above the triangle. And this year, what they started off with, the #1 session, is to trying to figure out how high this thing goes, where it is, does it move, does it obstruct, is it alive, is it dead? Is it just a structure that's there? What's its meaning? Is it pliable? So, what they did is, at the season 5, #1 episode, they first had a team meeting. And they announced that this is a good move, I think. A man named Jim Royce from Omnitech joined the team full-time. He has some special technology that he brings to the team that others don't have. This was good. Now, they talked about a 400-foot long dome structure that's in the mountain, in the mesa, right next to this triangle zone. And they've tried to drill it, and they've called it impenetrable. And Travis said that they found materials on the drill head that were very similar to what's used on spacecraft by the United States to protect it. That's pretty interesting. Then some of the other people at the ranch said that another cow dropped dead and died at the ranch about 50 meters from where another cow dropped dead. And now, they never said, and this is the part that bothers me. They say, oh yeah, another cow just dropped dead. Well, did you do a necropsy on it? They never said they did. There was no cause of death listed So I kind of figure that's a dead issue to even bring. Why bring it up if you're not going to do a necropsy on it? So they said in the middle of the triangle, 31 feet in the air, there's something like a blob, and that's what I was explaining to you. And then they had pictures that they had taken with infrared technology that showed a black center into it, surrounded by color. And then Travis brought pictures of a black hole in space, and damn if it didn't look very similar to the pictures taken of this blob-like thing from up above. That was fascinating. Now, they decided that they're going to do something new that they've never done before at the ranch to start off season 1. So they know that this blob-like device goes up into the air above the triangle. What they're going to do is they're going to put 2 helicopters in the air. Brandon's personal helicopter and then another helicopter. They're going to put Travis in the other helicopter, and they're going to put another scientist in this helicopter. And Travis is going to transmit at 1.6 gigahertz to the other helicopter and to the ground. And they're going to see if they can penetrate through the middle of the blob, and if they continue to go up, does the blob interfere with this transmission going helicopter to helicopter? As I was doing this, as I was watching this with Angie, I was thinking, you know, some people who just want out-and-out entertainment, laughs and giggles and this and that, are going to find this show a little boring. I didn't at all. I loved it. But the people who want more entertainment and less science may find this show as we go forward boring. If you're truly interested in understanding science, Travis is going to walk us down that path. And what he did is he wanted replication. So they started off at 200 feet off the ground, transmitting from helicopter to helicopter. At one point, just 200 feet off the ground, the 1.6 gigahertz signal disappeared for 1 to 3 seconds as it went point to point. They couldn't explain it. Then they went to 500 feet, helicopter to helicopter, no signal. And then they started rotating their helicopters around this device. Travis asked himself, as they were transmitting, is this object in the middle moving? And they couldn't answer that. And then as this is going on, they launched a drone up into the sky to take photos downward from where the helicopters were moving. Well, the drone lost its GPS capability. That is unusual. I'm somebody who's around drones a lot. It doesn't happen. At 700 feet, they initially had no signal, then they did. At 3,000 feet, they had a rocket ready to launch down at the bottom, and they launched it. And there was a brief GPS anomaly right after they launched the rocket. Helicopter reported no GPS at that point, and that has never happened. So now you have these things circling the triangle down below, just off its perimeter, trying to transmit through it. I hope I'm explaining this well. So the GPS in the helicopter was interrupted, the GPS in the drone was interrupted. And then they said at 4,000 feet, they lost the signal again, helicopter to helicopter. And Travis said that this is good. This is repeatable data at every altitude. And they said when Travis was on the north side of the triangle trying to transmit through it, that is the time he was blocked. Yet when he went around to other sides of it, he was able to transmit through it. So Travis said, put me on the ground, and then I'm going to try to transmit up to the helicopter through it. Signal was blocked. And then they went 300 feet offline away from the triangle, and the signal went straight up to the helicopter without a problem. Proving there is something above that triangle that's causing not interference, complete blockage of the signal. So what they did is they went in and evaluated the data that they were getting. The next day, they get together in a room and they talked about it. So they had live GPS on the helicopter. Helicopter takes off, it rotates around and is slowly rotating around the triangle. Both of them are opposite of each other. And then they slowly go up in altitude. Their path of flight is shown on a transmission of a computer with data points as they fly along, transmitting from their GPS. Most unusual thing I've seen, because I've seen these transmission points before. It's as planes fly. Well, there's huge gaps in these transmissions as they're flying that would be equal to the interruptions on the GPS on the 1.6 gigahertz signal that they're sending helicopter to helicopter. Well, it's not only that, it's interrupting the signal of the flight pattern of the helicopters. And you say, well, what's a big deal? That's a huge deal, folks. Because GPS is used in all flight. All flight. And what I find fascinating up to this point is whatever this device is in the triangle interrupts a multitude of electronic transmissions. GPS, 1.6 gigahertz, etc. But what it doesn't interrupt is the flight of the helicopters or anything seemingly that has a person in it. Now, we've seen it interrupt drones last year, and we've seen it interrupt rockets last year, but not humans. Why would that be? To me, it doesn't make a lot of sense unless it was a thinking device that saw a difference between us being in the craft and us being not in the craft. So they have cameras everywhere at this ranch. They have cameras in the helicopter looking out, looking up, looking straight, looking down. They have the drone looking down, looking around. And they have to go through and they have to look at these frame by frame to see what they can find. Oh, and they found some good stuff. So, from the helipad, they saw an orb-like device high above the helipad. And they weren't sure if it was changing shape or not, but you could watch it. They had it on screen, and it was moving across. And it reminded me a lot like a long shaft that was white. And Travis mentioned that to him, as he looked close at it, it looked like it had multi-layers, or it was two craft. If it had multi-layers, then I only could see one, and it looked like a tube. It was very similar on screen to what we put on screen in Missing 411 The Hunted on Ron Moorhead's property, what he and his wife saw. Very similar. And Travis said it's either two objects or multi-level. He said it was about 5.5 feet long. And then looking down at the ground, they filmed a solid white object moving across the triangle, deliberately floating from the south. They said it stopped momentarily and then it changed direction, and you could see that. And they believed it came out of the mesa. It was a saturated white in color. And this coming out of the mesa is an important piece, because last year they had other things very similar to this, almost like a white orb coming out of the mesa at various times. Now remember, the mesa is also where they tried to drill into, and there's a huge something in there that they can't get and penetrate. It appears from coming attractions that they got some pretty interesting stuff out of that mesa, but as of right now, just got to wait for the season to evolve to find out. So, my take on what they tried to find here. They tried to get more data points about this structure above the triangle. You can't see it unless you're using super specialized photographic equipment that they had only one time, and you could see this. It's not an even, it's something very odd. It almost reminded me of something coming out of the ocean that was carved by waves with irregular sides and shape, but it's almost like a pillar, but uneven sides and shape. I like the first episode. But they also talked about multi-dimensions, wormholes. And that's exactly what I'm interested in. If they continue down the same track, they're going to have me for the whole season. Again, I think that the History Channel, Prometheus, which is doing the production, has to walk a fine line between pure science and entertainment. And I think the oddity that we have with Travis and Bard is that both these guys show their emotions occasionally. And that's really what makes it fun. When Travis couldn't penetrate this thing at 1.6 gigahertz, and he got it back to the ground, and he walked around on the ground and tried to get at an angle to do it, and finally figured out he could, you could see the excitement. And when they saw these things flying along in the debriefing, you can tell he was excited about that. And folks, what I'm trying to get across to you is a physicist like Travis Taylor, who has worked for our government, could have any job a physicist could want in the world, gets excited about his work. He's not an actor, folks. He's a physicist. I don't believe those emotions can be faked. I got to tell you, Brandon, the owner of the ranch, putting his money where his mouth is, trying to figure out what is happening at Skinwalker Ranch. We're blessed to have him at this point. And remember, one of the complaints about Mr. Bigelow is that he never passed on his research to Brandon Fugal. He didn't have to. He paid for his research. He's got it. So Brandon really had to try and attempt to start up from scratch. And I think at this point, we, as members of the public that are riding on his back, as he's taken us on this ride, have learned so much more about our world that we wouldn't have known had he taken this series on. And one last thing is, sitting on the couch with Angie, and we were talking at the end of the episode, and I said, all these things that they caught flying around the property, and all of the unusual things we've experienced in our life, how do we know these things haven't been flying around us? How much about the world around us that we never see, but is happening? And it's happening for a reason that we don't have any idea. Friends, remember, the bald eagle, And the most important word in your vocabulary: liberty. Thanks for being here. Paulides out.